Hiya, welcome to My Compound Life. I'm your host, Jonathan. In My Compound Life channel, we build assets, we build habits, and of course, we build freedom, financial freedom, that is. Thanks for watching. Before we go any further along, do please drop a like, hit subscribe, and become my 8th subscribers, right? Be really helpful, just subscribe, and then in the comment section just write 8 so that I know who you are. Thanks for doing that. Okay, so today, right now it's the 26th of November, right? And in today's episode I'm gonna talk mainly about Bitcoin, my favorite topic. So at present, as of the time of recording, Bitcoin price is about 87,400. It has been hovering around this region for, I think, for the past 24 to 48 hours. Not too bad, because I still deem it as a recovery in comparison to how many days ago? About 2 days ago, 4 days ago, about 4 days ago, it was as low as 80,600, right? So it is doing slightly better. I cannot say full recovery, but it is in a way trying to recover, right? But having said that, I think from yesterday's video, we chatted about let's not immediately be bullish, because at any point of time when you try to be bullish, it always feel like market makers gonna drag you down again, right? Yeah, because it does seem anytime when Bitcoin is trying to go slightly upwards again, we definitely see some sort of price suppressions, or the pressure of selling it simply too big. Okay, let's quickly look at the fear and greed index. We are at present 15. It's still showing extreme fear. In comparison to yesterday, I think the sentiment definitely dropped tremendously. Well, I can't say tremendously, dropped down a little bit, because yesterday we were at 20, right? So obviously there's been some improvement in comparison to the last 7 days when we were at 14, but overall for the last 30 days, right, we were at around 22. So today it's still pretty fearful. I think until how many days later until we get the Fed rate cut announcement, I think there's still about 12 days. I think for now everyone are still pretty fearful. Money on the sideline. Big whales took out their, many of them cash out. Thinking that maybe the Bitcoin 4-year cycle is over. So as a result, I think there has been a lot of speculation that Bitcoin will probably follow the ISM business cycle. So there's actually still a lot of influencers out there that are spreading hopium. I can't say spreading hopium, but they are very hopeful that by next year there would be another boom, there would be another all-time high for Bitcoin. Okay, but let's be ultra conservative until we can see improvement in terms of Bitcoin price, or for Bitcoin price to clinch onto the 50 days moving average, which we are still quite far away from, to about 102,000 US dollars from current price of 87,400. Until then, I'm not going to be bullish. For me personally, I have stopped buying or selling, FOMO buying, because people are saying that the bottom's in, let's go all in. Because I've been here, I've been through the last cycle. For me, it's to essentially to get out from Bitcoin now, right? I'm not saying totally get out, but my swing back of Bitcoin, I'm trying to get out. So that's why for me, I've essentially stopped buying or trying to buy from the low, right? However, for others that are new to Bitcoin, I think at current price of 87,000, it's a very good entry price, no doubt, right? It kind of helped to set you up, to prepare you for the next cycle. And I'm just trying to save cash, be in cash, be liquid, so that I can re-enter Bitcoin again slightly later next year in November. That would be my kind of time frame. Okay. And also, let's quickly look at ETF inflows and outflows. Right, I've got some interesting chart. I think let's quickly just look at the months of November at present, right? What's the current ETF inflows and outflow? In terms of November, overall, it's actually an outflow of approximately 3.57 billion, right, for the month of November. Okay. It is as bad as February 2025. Don't worry, I'll show the chart. I'll add in the chart in the video somewhere if I do get a chance. So in comparison to 2025, when Trump introduced the tariff, when Trump has a lot of crazy tariffs increase for all over the world, including China, it definitely affected the Bitcoin price. And the total outflow was about 3.56 billion. Right? So we are currently at 3.57 billion outflow. That's in US dollars, not number of Bitcoins, right? Because they can only be 21 million Bitcoin, right? So from that sense, we still haven't closed November yet. We still have a couple of days. I kind of felt maybe this time around the outflow will be higher, right? So give it another few days, see how much inflows and outflow, and then we should have a clearer picture, right? So from inception until now, I think this month and the months of February recent year 2025, Bitcoin has seen the greatest outflow of all, right? But for overall, the other months, it was purely just inflows, right? So definitely more inflows versus outflow. Okay. Let's quickly look at the yesterday's ETF performance, right? So yesterday, Bitcoin received approximately 128 million inflow, so that's positive. Well, in comparison to the day before, it was 151 million outflow, right? So it kind of cancels it. But overall, for the past 2 weeks, we are definitely seeing more outflows versus inflow. And quickly look at Ethereum ETF. So it would be the ETP, ETNs in our area of the world in the UK. Ethereum, we actually saw 3 positive inflow consecutively, right? So yesterday was approximately 78 million. The day before was 96 million, and the day before that's the Monday, that was 55 million. Okay, so more positive for Ethereum. I think it lifts this off from Tom Lee's shoulder a little bit more. And of course, let's quickly look at Solana ETF. As of yesterday's, it was still positive inflow, 53 million, right? So Bitcoin, Ethereum has seen so much outflow for the past 3 weeks, right? Past months, actually. The only one that's really performing is actually the Solana ETF. Okay, so good for Solana. Okay, what I want to talk about more today is much more on Bitcoin strategy and JPMorgan. Okay, so grab a coffee, sit down, because today this story, it's pretty wild for all of us, right? So the Bitcoin army, if there is one, right? So anyone that are really interested in Bitcoin, they simply just declared war on the biggest bank in America, JPMorgan, right? So you kind of see a lot of people trying to boycott JPMorgan at present. And it all blew up in the last 7 days, right? So, I'm trying to consolidate everything and try to give you a clearer picture. But before we kind of get into all of that, just let me take you back a little bit. So, Michael Saylor and his company strategy, it used to call MicroStrategy, okay? They own more Bitcoin than almost anybody on earth. I think well over 250,000 of Bitcoin coins, right? Not millions, right? So 250,000 worth of Bitcoin coins. They basically turned their company into a giant Bitcoin piggy bank, or we call them a reserve company, Bitcoin reserve company. And because of that, their stock went to the moon, okay? But here's the problem. There's this huge index company called MSCI. Let me see what MSCI stands for. Morgan Stanley Capital International, okay, MSCI. So they decide which stocks to go into the big ETFs that a lot of us buy, or your mom and dad or your grandma and grandpa buys, and pension funds buys, okay? So, and MSCI just said, starting from January 2026, if more than 50% of your company is in crypto, you're out of that index, okay? So essentially, JPMorgan trying to build their own they own their ecosystem, and they're trying to push out Bitcoin and crypto investment firms, right? So essentially what this means would be strategy could potentially get kicked out, right? So that's not good. That means billions of dollars would be forced to sell the stock automatically. And hence, we are seeing a lot of such effect recently on MicroStrategy stock like MSTR and ETF and so forth, right? So the stock would crash and Bitcoin would take a huge hit with it. So now enter the villain of our story, JPMorgan. Okay, so last week, JPMorgan's research team wrote a big report saying that, hey, everyone's strategy is probably getting booted. So get ready for $3 billion, maybe even $9 billion of selling, right? So not good. The Bitcoin crowd kind of lost their minds. They said JP Morgan isn't just reporting the news, they're cheering for, to hurt Bitcoin, right? They're trying to harm Bitcoin. And that's when the whole boycott started, right? So Grant Cardone, the big real estate guy in the US, went on camera and said, I just pulled $20 million out of Chase, right? So Chase, that's part of JP Morgan's bank for normal people. And he said, he's closing every single account with JP Morgan. And then Max Kaiser screaming out, crash JP Morgan, buy Bitcoin. And I think that's the advice that I'm also telling everyone too, right? To maximize on your ISA, your investment ISA, right? Onto some asset that are performing, with Bitcoin ETP, ETN, that are available in the UK. Maybe you guys should really maximize it and don't store too much cash in the bank, simply just store them into Bitcoin, right? Buy through exchange, take the Bitcoin off exchange and put them into a cold wallet, a hardware wallet or some sort, right? Thousands of regular people also started posting photos of them closing their Chase accounts or with JP Morgan, okay? And then I think in X, you'll be able to see a lot of hashtag boycott JP Morgan all over social media, okay? I didn't do that because I don't personally bank with JP Morgan anyway, right? So, why are people this mad, right? Because a lot of us remember Jamie Dimon, the boss of JP Morgan, used to call Bitcoin a fraud. His bank has shut down bank accounts of crypto companies for no clear reason. I think that was in the last cycle. And now his analysts drop a report that feels like another punch at Bitcoin right when companies are finally stacking sats like crazy, right? So I think we are definitely seeing a lot of, of what's happening. It's essentially TradFi, something like JP Morgan, trying to suppress Bitcoin, right? So in a way, this kind of explains the recent dump. I've covered a little bit about Tom Lee's theory about algorithm glitch, maybe on the market makers, maybe on Binance side, right? And yesterday I've also covered a little story that was actually more of a conspiracy theory about China pig butchering scam ring trying to sell off their Bitcoin because they're afraid of the government confiscating it, right? And then now, with this JP Morgan, I think all of this maybe plays out together. So that's why there has been such a huge collapse on Bitcoin price from the 10th of October until today, right? So that could be, with all of this play a role together, potentially, it's affecting and suppressing the Bitcoin price, right? So the Bitcoin family obviously said, fine, you hit us, we hit your money. But realistically, is the boycott going to bring JP Morgan to its knees? I kind of felt probably not. They have about $4 trillion, right? And, there's a lot of saying that JP Morgans are also shorting MicroStrategy. I think, these are just speculation for now, right? But it sends a message loud and clear. If you fight Bitcoin, Bitcoin people will walk away and take their money with them, okay? And this is being serious, right? If the government, I think even US government is putting a very strong stance about Bitcoin and trying to protect Bitcoin. And I kind of felt a lot of traditional finance, even the UK government, the UK traditional finance are trying to put a stop onto Bitcoin, right? But very likely a lot of people, millionaire, billionaire that made their fortune on Bitcoin, they'll probably walk away, right? And that's something that you don't want to happen, right? So be clever, right? Stash away your Bitcoin, well, stash away your wealth into Bitcoin, and maybe it works out. Just walk away from the UK, maybe, right? Until Rachel Reeves slap on the exit tax, which I think will have some clearer indication later today. But anyway, let's get back to our story. Honestly, I still love seeing the energy from Bitcoiners, but I'm just an ordinary investor. I don't, Bitcoin, as I mentioned before, will be one of many assets that I hold. One of the even top performing one for my case, right? That can help me to generate more income in a shorter period of time and pay off more of my properties, real estates, right? Essentially because, I started my investment journey through properties and real estate a little bit, like following the footstep from Robert Kiyosaki from Rich Dad, Poor Dad, right? So it's great seeing all of this energy. It feels like the little guy finally has some power, but I think it's still far away from dethroning a TradFi. So, I mean, tell me in the comment, do you still have an account with Chase or JPMorgan? Not that I don't think not many people in the UK does. And would you close it after this, this takeout of MicroStrategy and Bitcoin, right? And that's it for my story. Have a great day. Hit the like, hit subscribe. I'll bring you more content from MyCompoundLife. I'm Jonathan. We build assets, we build habits, we build freedom, financial freedom. Okay.